the story I wanted to share is just it's a short story, but it really stuck with me, and it's a lesson that I'm learning in life. I'd love to say I've learned it, but I'm still learning it, in fact. And it's about the power of the pause. And as you know about Rabbi Zeigler, he was very, very methodical in everything that he did. Really had a way about doing things, and this was he had thought about it, and he did it in a proper way. And once I was discussing with him some of the exceptions that I was studying in Shchita, I was like, I learned this, but it comes up. I've never seen it before. In all 7 months that we've been together, I've never seen it, and I've never heard of it. I'm learning all the exceptions. Anyway, so he told me, he said, you know what, you have to learn all the exceptions. And he said, let me tell you a story about it. Each thing that he taught me, there's always a story about it. Once, I don't know if it was in Kimberley, some place in the middle of nowhere that begins with a K. That's all I remember. He did a bris milah. And he said after he did that bris, he went, I don't know, it was the next day or later that evening, to go and check on the baby. And he didn't give me all the details, but he said basically when he looked, he said that just, hey, there's a baby. When he looked, he said it didn't look right. It looked terrible. It looked like he hadn't done a proper job. And he was so shocked and disturbed because obviously his name and his reputation was really gold to him, and he really looked after it. And he said the first thought that went through his mind was, well, that's my bris milah career gone, because what it looked like was just terrible. So what he did was, he said he went for a walk in the garden. He said he didn't know what to do. He went for a walk in the garden. He walked around the garden of the house a few times. And as he was walking around, he remembered that when he was in yeshiva, he studied, all the laws of Brit Milah and some of the exceptions. And 1 out of 1,000 babies has basically a double Brit Milah, a double foreskin. And even if you cut the one all properly, if you look again afterwards, it looked like there's still the foreskin on. And he remembered that. And he went back and he said, oh, that must be the exception. And he did what he needed to do. And it all worked out well. And when he was telling me the story, I just thought, what would I do in such a circumstance? You do something and I would have panicked. I would have phoned somebody. I would have just given up. I would have said, oh, terrible. And he didn't do any of that. A lot of these thoughts were going through his head, and he said he needs time to think about it. And he went to walk in the garden. And people often ask me, did Rabbi Zeigler do any exercise? I could never imagine him just, walking in the garden for fun. But this was a time where he went for a walk. He said I needed time to clear his head and to work it out and to think about and to brew over the circumstances. And he went for that walk in the garden. And he said if he hadn't gone for that walk, he would have panicked and he would have just said, look, he's made a mistake, and it all would have been the end. So that's something that I learned from him, and the story that he shared with me. And it's something that I think we all need to do. For me, that's that for who I am. I like to make decisions in a rush. So that's something that I've really learned from, and I've really taken the page out of his book. That story stays with me a lot. And I think to myself, okay, go for a walk in the garden for a bit, and then think about it, let it stew. And the right answer always comes up at the end.